This episode of Gators Breakdown is brought to you by MyBookie. Use promo code Gators to double your first deposit only at mybookie.ag. This episode of Gators Breakdown is also brought to you by Shark Coatings. Visit sharkfloorcoatings.com when you need professional floor coating services done right the first time.
Want more Gators Breakdown? Join Gators Breakdown Plus. Starting at $3 a month, get access to unique episodes, plus a blog, chat room, giveaways, shoutouts, and more. Gators Breakdown Plus is furthering the interaction with fans and listeners like you. Head to gatorsbreakdown.supportingcast.fm to join Gators Breakdown Plus today. Gators Breakdown. Because there's never a dull moment in Gator Nation.
The Gators Breakdown podcast is ready to go. I'm your host, David Waters. You can find me on Twitter at GatorDave_SEC. Coming at you with the 42-20 Georgia victory over Florida. Game review, analysis, reaction. Never liked losing to Georgia, even though somewhat expected, of course, even pretty much how I expected. So we'll get into that a bit here. But 42-20 Georgia over Florida in Jacksonville. And atmosphere before the game, it felt like a Florida-Georgia game. I had some TV hits to do that morning, getting everybody ready for the game here in the Jacksonville area. And right there in the fairgrounds, like I am pretty much every year there. And that felt normal. The tailgate with Harmonic Woods felt normal in the junkyard, the Wild West there with the RVs and the bus. Before the game, it felt like Florida, Georgia get the stadium. Probably a 60-40 Georgia split, somewhere around there. Definitely more Georgia fans in that stadium. And around in the Florida section as well. There were my wife and my parents. Got to go as a fan. So besides the game itself, had a great time. But of course, we're all there for the game. That didn't go like we wanted it to. But a lot of ways, I expected it to. Go back to the preview episode last week. I had Georgia 41, Florida 20. The final score, 42-20 Georgia. I was a point off. And the fan in me, of course, is disappointed. Absolutely. I don't like losing to Georgia. I hate losing to Georgia. I hate losing another game. Florida's sitting at 4-4 right now. That's not great. That's not good. The analyst in analyzing this side, the analyzing side of this, how can I be upset at what I expected? We know what Georgia is. We know what Florida is. We know what they were coming into the game. That's why I picked 41-20. And look, it was 42-20. The game played out about like I thought it would. How can I be upset from analyzing the game? Separating that from the fan side. It was what I expected. Yes, I can be upset in some ways from the fan side, but analyzing the game, I can't be. It played out like I thought it would. The inconsistency in Florida's offense. We know Florida's not very good on defense, and it played out that way. So we'll get into it right here on this episode of Gators Breakdown. You may not like the result, but you can still like the work we're doing here at Gators Breakdown. Give that thumbs up, a push, hit that like button, get those likes up right here on Gators Breakdown. Subscribe if you haven't done so yet. Of course, plenty of coverage at news4jax.com/Gators Breakdown of the game from many angles there with the game being here in Jacksonville. It gets covered even more, of course. And then Gators Breakdown Plus. Man, I spent a lot of time in the stadium on the Gators Breakdown Plus Discord in the game. And, of course, a lot of emotion. The last few days, of course, dating back to last Thursday and disappointing with recruiting and now Florida, Georgia at the same time. So a lot going on that side, a lot of passionate Gator talk right there in the Gators Breakdown Plus Discord. We're working through it. It's we cathartic. We try and talk ourselves out of what's going on a bit, console each other a good bit for the most part right there on Gators Breakdown Plus. Link is in the description to sign up to get all the extra episodes and access to that Discord server so you can interact even more with Gator Nation out there. All right, so let's get to it. Gonna quickly kind of just go through the game. Of course, that's something I've kind of just wanted to start doing, and I've done that now. Kind of just quick notes of each drive there for Florida and the opponent. So, of course, with this one, Georgia gets ball first. Florida won the toss, and you finally got the stop. You get the stop on the first drive of the game. Georgia was facing a 2nd and 18. They converted that. And then Rashad Torrance drops an easy interception, but did get the 3rd and 8, and there you go. We've wondered about third down defense for this Gator defense, and very first drive, you force a punt. So, all right, job one, job done. The Gator offense needed to respond, put some pressure on Georgia, and 3 and out. And that would be a common theme for the first half of the game. And then Georgia gets it rolling, second drive. Florida played some really soft defense. And I meant that maybe I won't necessarily say effort. I won't say that. As I've always said, that is very hard to measure, but the approach was soft. So that second drive, they failed to tackle well after the catch. Georgia, a lot of yards after the catch. Something I'm going to have to go back and look at. I wasn't able, with everything going on, family in town, friends in town, I got a lot of good stats here but yards after the catch is something I want to go look for Georgia in this one as we analyze the game even more. But of course, you saw you don't even need the stat number really. We all know and saw how Georgia was able to just rack up yards after the catch. And that was very apparent in the second drive of the game. Saw performance on that drive from the Gator defense. Gives Georgia 7-0 lead. And then, of course, Florida gets ball back, and you had a 3rd and 16 after a penalty. Florida wasn't helping themselves early on in this game with penalties. That led to another 3 and out after that was set up for 3rd and 16. Offense can't get anything down the field whatsoever early on in this game. And then Georgia's third drive, another easy drive for them. Once again set up by yards after the catch. And some tough running. Georgia got the run game going right there as well. 14-0 Georgia. Gator gets the ball back. Another 3 and out. AR high pass on 3rd down is shorter. So you like to see your quarterback be more consistent there. We'll get into that as well, but that's where you could tell there were some plays there to be made, but inconsistency, like we've said all year, leading up to this game as well. If you're an inconsistent offense going against one of the best defenses, if not the best defense in the country, that's probably going to continue. But then the Gator defense steps up. Jadarius Perkins, interception. Great wrestling it away from the Georgia receiver, giving Florida the ball, but then another 3 and out for the Gator offense. Georgia gets the sack, intentional grounding there on 1st down. Had a 3rd and 7, but another penalty on Iguacan. 3rd and 12, pass falls incomplete. Georgia declines holding on that play as well by Iguacan as well. He had a rough go of it early on in this game, but look, the offense had a rough go of it. Of course, in the offensive line up front, it was pretty apparent this was going to be the most pressure Anthony Richardson had faced from a defensive front all season long. And then the unfortunate happens. Amari Burney in great position to make a play, tips the ball. Instead of going to the ground, it gets juggled by Bowers there for Georgia, the tight end. 21-0 Georgia after that. And just unfortunate play. You have a guy in position, makes a play, but so does Georgia at the same time. 21-0 Georgia. The route kind of on, maybe. But man, you just in position there. This Gator defense did some good things, even though the stats will not show it. Still a bad performance. I'm not excusing that, but there were some bright spots with getting Georgia off the field, getting some turnovers. But after 21-0, Florida gets the ball back, finally get their first down early in the second quarter. But this is where AR misses a wide open Marcus Burke, at least for a big gain, if not a touchdown. Run on 3rd and 12 sets up 4th and 11 but the Gators do get on the board there. 21-3 Georgia. And then a Georgia drop. Cox, McClellan, and Cox get in the backfield on 3rd and 1. But Georgia gets 4th and 1 anyway. But really good play by McClellan there, the true freshman, early in this game. Sets up 3rd and 1. Georgia gets 4th and 1 anyway. Later converted 3rd and 1. 3rd and 10 falls incomplete. And then here we go. There's 2:08 left in the first half. And Florida did not come out aggressive whatsoever when you look at that. And that drive, where was that at? That started on their own 16. So you maybe get a little conservative or get why the conservative play there, but down 21-3, and it led to Georgia score anyway. Even playing that conservative, not converting anything, gave Georgia calls a timeout, gets the ball back. They score a touchdown on the next drive. But Henderson bobbled the carry on the first play. It was a little kind of motion reverse with him. Then another small, 2nd and 14. Florida runs the ball after losing yardage on that first down. Conservative play calling with a chance to maybe close the score 21-3, or at least take some time off the clock for Georgia not to go put the point on the board before halftime. AR goes out of bounds on 3rd down. Just a terrible approach to players and coaches right there. To me, I think that's where I'm going with that. I'll get into it a bit too. I'm not sure how much trust is there, especially against that defense on your own 16-yard line. But man, just coming out with that reverse to Henderson and then running again on 2nd and 14. I know that's more than likely where a lot of people go after a first down loss. But Florida needed something there, whether that is eating more time off the clock or eventually scoring on that drive. It was a rough first half for the Gator offense. I mean, no doubt about that. So UGA, they start near midfield after a bad punt. That compounded the issue. And then you get the phantom defensive pass interference call on Jason Marshall that clearly was not defensive pass interference, was offensive pass interference. And that 3rd and 10, that led to another Georgia touchdown, 28-3 going into halftime, and you feel it. Okay, well, man, this is maybe even worse than you expect. 12 plays on 4 drives for the Gator offense in the first half. It's 28-3. Georgia has a 346 to 88-yard advantage in the first half. After halftime, Florida comes out. Anthony Richardson can't hit downfield after this first drive after halftime, but has some short throws, run for first downs, 3rd and 9, quarterback run goes for 5. You could tell, and I'll get into it a bit, some of these 3rd and longs were trying to set up 4th and shorts. Didn't work out a lot of the time. But 4th and 4, Florida ends up calling a timeout. And then Georgia does, okay, they ignore the whistle, hit Anthony Richardson, flag rightfully called. One of the few flags that actually went Florida's way in this game. Don't get me wrong, not making an excuse. Refs do not mean anything in the result of this game. But we can also say separately, at the same time, the calls were very one-sided in this game. But did it make a difference? No, that is not an excuse, not what I'm trying to say. But, of course, it was not called down the line this game. Anyway, it sets up first down for Florida after the penalty. Driving, AR misses Anthony Richardson misses Keon Zipper in the end zone, but the ETN run goes to outside on 3rd and 7. 2 plays later, Florida scores the first touchdown of the game. First drive after halftime, 28-10. And what have we seen so many times from this Gator team? A 3rd quarter debacle on both sides of the ball. That didn't happen here. That did not happen in this game. Florida gets a fumble on the very first drive of for Georgia in the second half. How many times have we seen opponents come out of halftime, run the ball, and run it right down Florida's throat? That ends up happening. Don't get me wrong. We know that. But if we're looking for anything to point to, especially on defense, where we have seen 3rd quarter be so bad, they turned it on. Both sides of the ball turned it on here. Get a fumble on Georgia's first drive, leads to 28-13. You had to settle for a field goal. And that was at my point that I realized there was not, and I'll explain a little bit more. I don't want to make too much of it. And I will go into deeper detail once we get through the game review here. But not a lot of trust in your quarterback versus this Georgia defense. I'll leave it at that for now, and I'll go into detail later. Let's just get through this part, and then I'll promise I'll hop back on that. And then set a 4 field goal, 28-13. Georgia gets the ball back, and Amari Burney comes up with an interception, making plays. Was Amari Burney all over the field versus Georgia. Rashad Torrance called for unnecessary roughness right there. But at that point, as I mentioned, you come out of the third quarter, both sides of the ball, and especially for this defense where it's not looking good. It's 28-3, not looking good for either side of the ball. But coming out, man, this team does not give up. This team does not quit. We've seen it almost every game this season. There's been multiple times when they could fold it up. They've been down multiple scores, and they find a way to get back in the game. There is a lot of trust, a lot of, plainly and simply, a lot of care there. I hate questioning effort. I really do. You can't measure it. You go by optics on that. But we have seen plenty of times this year this team does not quit. Florida gets back in this game. Lingard actually gets in. We haven't seen Naquan Wright, but Lingard gets in. We've seen Trevor Etienne. We've seen Montrell Johnson in this game, but Lorenzo Lingard gets in the game, has a carry early. But, man, biggest play of the game. Here we go. Busted coverage, tight end. Anthony Richardson finds Xavier Henderson 78 yards. It is 28-20 Georgia. Florida side's finally going crazy in the game. And that's a new career passing long for Anthony Richardson and a career receiving long for Xavier Henderson. 78-yard touchdown. It is 28-20. And that would be it for the Gator offense and its scoring. Georgia responds. They're not turning the ball over now. They respond, run it down Florida's throat. They had rushes of 11 yards, 20 yards, 8 yards, 22 yards, and extend the lead 35-20. Man, you just credit for the defense of getting those turnovers. They needed those turnovers. They've been pretty good at creating turnovers this year. We'll get into that a little bit. But that's what was going to that was what it was going to take to get in this game, to stay in this game, to have a chance. When they didn't create the turnovers in the second half, it was Georgia scoring the ball. Scoring points to win the game. So they were turning the ball over coming out of halftime. One drive they don't. Florida brings it within 28-20, and Georgia responds. Next play for Florida, next drive for Florida, you had Anthony Richardson with a nice big play to hit shorter for 20 yards. Then you had a pass interference called on Georgia that just flag got picked up. Florida goes for it, fourth down, no good. And then next drive, you had Georgia on fourth and 7. And Trey Dean, a pretty good game up to this point in the game. Even on this drive, had some nice plays on this drive. But he's in coverage. Brenton Cox jumps off sides, I believe. Georgia takes a shot. Trey Dean doesn't get his head around. A couple plays later, 42-20 with another Georgia touchdown right there. And that would pretty much do it. Florida ends up with a desperation 4th and 11 in the Georgia red zone later. Wouldn't have amounted to much there. But there was pretty much your game as Georgia wins 42-20. Man, that third quarter, I'm telling you, it finally, when you go to games, well, never mind. If you're just a fan of your team, you want to feel like you have a chance at some point in the game, after the kickoff. And, especially if you go to the game, you want to have a good time in the stadium. And especially if you're on the Florida side and there's a ton of Georgia fans around you. I mean, there were pockets where there were plenty of Georgia fans around the Gator fans, and they were having all the fun in the first half. And at least the Gator fans, if you're in the stadium at home, at least you got to get a good feeling. Don't get me wrong. There's no moral victory. That's not what I'm sitting at here. But, being there, you want to have something to cheer for there. Feel like you have a chance. And it was there in the third quarter. But Georgia eventually too much pulls away, wins 42-20 over the Gators. Gators fall to 4-4 on the season. Georgia still undefeated. As we all head into the last month of the college football season. So we'll take a look at some stats coming up here. But before we do, The NFL is in full swing. College football is heading into the last month. The World Series is competitive as it gets off to a start. There's so much action over at MyBookie. MyBookie has the biggest online selection of odds and contests to fill all your sports betting needs anytime and anywhere. Bet on the NFL, the World Series, college football, or play for a share of big cash prizes in the weekly blackjack tournaments. If you've been waiting for the right time to get in on the action, that time is now. Make your winning move today. Sign up at MyBookie, use promo code Gators, and claim your deposit match of any amount up to $1,000. Again, that's promo code Gators to claim your bonus. Experience sports in a whole new light and make this season a winning one. Bet anything, anytime, anywhere with MyBookie.
You know the goosebumps you get when Florida takes the field? Or when that 63-yard Hail Mary actually works? Or the thrill of a game-winning interception in the end zone? What a rush! You can experience that same rush every day at your home with Shark Coatings. We'll cover your old, ugly concrete with a beautiful industrial concrete coating and a warranty that lasts longer than most careers in professional football. So whether your garage floor is for parking, partying, or working out, Shark Coatings can transform it. And if your pool deck is starting to look like a bulldog, old, cracked, and smells like pee, Shark Coatings can transform that too. Shark Coatings is easy to clean, stain resistant, and is 100% antibacterial and antimicrobial. We're easy on the eyes and on the maintenance. Gator Nation is worldwide, and Shark Coatings is based right in the heart of it. So whether you live in Brunswick, Georgia, or Live Oak, Florida, down to Ocala, over to New Smyrna Beach, or anywhere in between, contact us for a free estimate today. Learn more at sharkfloorcoatings.com. That's sharkfloorcoatings.com.
All right, let's get to stats. Aren't going to be pretty, of course, but part of the review is, well, we'll get there. Let's see. Got to see how I can do this. I didn't save them the right way. Let's see. What background can I put behind this one? Got to see if I can. May just have to put them over my face. It'll be fine. We'll fix it next episode. But there we go. 371 yards for 555 for Georgia. That big edge there that they had. That's a record in this game, by the way. I'll get into that. Let me see. I think I have that ready to go. Yeah, 42 points, 555 yards of total offense, most ever against Florida in a series. It dates back to 1904. So, not great there. Let's see. Let me get where I can see this better. All right, passing yards, 316 for Georgia, 271 for Florida. Rushing yards, 239 for Georgia, 100 for the Gators. Penalties, as I said, were a big issue up front early in the game for Florida. Rushing yards there. No, penalties, 7 for 53 for Florida, 4 for 40 for Georgia. First downs, 27-16 edge to Georgia. Third downs, 4-16 for Florida. Pretty much the story of the Gator offense right there. And then 6 of 12 for Georgia, 50%. Of course, a little better for Florida's defense than what we've seen lately. But still, for Georgia to get in 2 of 3 on the fourth down, kind of make up for it a bit. Florida 0 for 3 on fourth down. Some of that set up by some fourth and longs because of some third and long play calling, I think. Total plays, 78 for Georgia, 71 for Florida. Average yards per play, 7.1 for Georgia, 5.2 for the Gators. Average yards per completion, of course, Florida had the one big play. That helps here. 16.6 for Georgia, 15.1 for the Gators. Average yards per rush, here you go. Florida, one big storyline. I'll get into the stats more, but Florida's average yards per rush, being the nation's best, did not play out this game. And that was a big worry of mine. But Georgia, the team, comes in with this game, or leaves this game with the ones getting up to 6 yards of rush. Red zone, another story here. 4 for 4 for the Bulldogs. They've been a really good red zone team this year. That continued versus Florida. Florida 50%, 2 for 4. Time of possession, 31-17 edge for Georgia. 28-43 for the Gators. Turnovers kept Florida in it in the third quarter, of course. 3 turnovers for Georgia. Said last week you can't predict turnovers, and if Florida wasn't going to win in a shootout, which they did not here, the only other way was to be getting turnovers. And almost bled those two together. And Georgia with 3 sacks, once again, Gator defense can just not get a consistent pressure whatsoever on the quarterback. No sacks for the Gator defense. So gotta find something. I mean, that's a defense, and I saw in the comments too. Stats won't show it just because of how bad this defense is, but and especially who you're going against. Probably the second best offense Florida will face this season. Did show some good things. In some ways, one of the better performances because of who you were going against and how good the Georgia offense is. All right, let's look at Florida in particular stats here. Anthony Richardson, 18-37, 271, 1 touchdown, 49% completion percentage. I'll go deeper here with some thoughts there. Xavier Henderson, of course, 5 catches, 110 yards, 1 touchdown, 78-yard catch. Justin Shorter, 3 catches, 66 yards. Ricky Pearsall, 3 catches, 38. ETN, 3 catches, 20 yards, getting the running back involved a bit more in the passing game, 3 for 20. Some of those checkdowns there, of course. Marcus Burt, 1 for 14. Should have had another one, of course, going through the game earlier. Montrell Johnson, 1 catch. Dante Sanders, 1 catch. And then Florida rushing. ETN, 11 carries. Montrell Johnson, 11 carries. Anthony Richardson, 11 carries. ETN leads the way, 53 yards, 4.8 yard average. Montrell Johnson, 11 carries, 24 yards, 2.2. Anthony Richardson, 11 with 19 yards, 1.7. As I mentioned, the yards per carry, we're going to have to be much better, especially where Florida was coming into this season or coming into this game. Have been really good this season at yards per carry. But my worry was it would not show up versus Georgia, and it did not. Putting the game even more on Anthony Richardson's shoulders. And with the inconsistent play from him, which is kind of what I expected coming into this game, here's what he is. And against this defense, I just thought that was going to continue. Can it get better as the season goes on with the last month and some easier opponents? Absolutely. And it will need to. But I'm not sure why I said that was what it was going to take for Florida to win this game. If the run game got shut down like I thought it would, the game would need to be put on Anthony Richardson's shoulders. I just thought that was too much. And it played out about like I thought it would. And let's go to the other side. Georgia stat sheet right here. 19-38 for Stetson Bennett, 316, 2 touchdowns, 50% completion percentage. He did have the 2 interceptions as well. So that's the thing. Statistic-wise, you see the yard. That was the biggest difference between him and Anthony Richardson. He has the athletes to get the ball to and let them make plays. You heard me say yak and yards after the catch. That was something Georgia had a lot of. Stetson Bennett got the ball out, got it to his playmakers. They made balls, but the turnovers kept Florida in it. It was a turn. I mean, only 50% completion percentage. Nothing great there, but was able to hit the big passes as well, helping make up for some of those turnovers. Brock Bowers leads the way. No surprise. We knew these tight ends would be an issue for Florida like they are against almost every other defense out there. But Brock Bowers has his best game in quite some time this season after getting off to a hot start of this season. But 5 catches, 154 yards. The longest 73, of course, a tipped Amari Burney play, the 1 touchdown, 30.8 average. He was targeted 9 times. McConkey, 4 catches, 51 yards. Washington, 3 catches, 47 yards. Highlight the Georgia receiving core. Kenny McIntosh, 1 for -5. We did mention last week how much he is involved in the passing game for Georgia. Only 1 catch this game, 5-yard loss. And then Georgia rushing, of course, huge difference in this game. Edwards goes for 8.8 yards a carry, 12 attempts, 106 yards, 2 touchdowns. McIntosh, 16 attempts, 90 yards, 5.6 yards a carry. And Robinson goes for 9 attempts, 35 yards, 3.9 a carry. There's your look at the stats right there from Florida and Georgia. Not pretty on the Gator side, of course. And, kind of just going back through the game a bit, some of the highlights and lowlights, I guess should probably be said. Offense didn't help defense much in the first half. And look, we all know Georgia was going to score in this game. That was no secret. That was my biggest worry in this game. And it's why I picked Florida would have to win in a shootout. But there were stops and there were turnovers. Offense couldn't get going, couldn't respond enough. And if the defense is going to be bad, the offense is going to need to take advantage when the defense does their job. In the beginning of this game, you forced a punt. That was time to put some pressure on Georgia. Whatever pressure you could put on Georgia by responding and going up early. Go up 7-0. Didn't happen, of course. It just wasn't the best. In looking back at it and kind of setting expectations for myself in this game, this wasn't, and I said it last week, this wasn't the best opponent for the formula to work, but it was there. It was there. You did get some stops, didn't capitalize on offense. Like I said, the Gators didn't get their first down of the game till 11:25 less in the first half. You can't go 3 and out, 3 and out, 3 and out. Give Georgia credit. That was the worry. Their defense is that good. And if you're an inconsistent offense like Florida, pair those two together, add them up, and you get a result like that. Now, here's a glass half full perspective in some way. Take it or leave it. Just wanted to throw it out there. Doesn't mean a whole lot. But even before Florida's last drive, the garbage drive, Florida had 331 yards of offense, most against Georgia this season for an opposing offense. Florida ends up with 371, and we're all sure Tennessee will probably pass that next week. If they don't, still no consolation prize here. I just wanted to point it out. There's a lot of talk and a lot of criticism about this offense. And yes, I'll admit too, there were plays there to be made. But what'd you expect against this defense? Even if Florida was able to fix some things in the bye week, was it really going to show up versus Georgia? I didn't think it would. But the question still remains, what would the offense look like the next month of the season? And if you improved on anything and found anything in the bye week, you probably weren't going to see it versus Georgia, but we need to see it coming up. A loss still a loss, but, Georgia's going to make almost every offense they play look worse than they really are. But just something I noticed there. 331, even before that last drive, there's nothing to write home about. 371 versus, in total, okay, not many teams have gotten up around that range. We'll see if it means anything. I guess that's the point I'm going to. We'll see if it means anything. So yards per carry, of course, something I pointed to last week. It was the biggest stat for me coming into this game by previewing the game. I didn't think it was going to hold up versus Georgia. Florida was limited to 100 yards rushing attempts on 100 yards on 34 rushing attempts, 2.9 yards a carry. Florida entered the game 6.4. So 6.4 yards a carry. Florida ended with 2.9. When you look at the run game, extending it a bit more, Florida averaged 4.2 overall yards once adjusted for sacks. And then for Anthony Richardson taking out the sacks, he had 2 scrambles in the first half for 7 yards. Nothing to write home about. In the second half, did get more involved. Finally, some design runs. Official stats show 4 keepers for 18 yards, 2 scrambles for 23 yards. Nothing noteworthy except for probably made Georgia account for him a bit more in the second half. It did open up the run game overall in the second half. Florida ran for 87 yards in the second half, while only 13 in the first half. So did play a little better in the second half, especially in that third quarter. But Georgia's defense made third down tough for Florida. And that's one storyline of the game when you want to go look at coaching, play calling, all that from that angle. Florida had 16 third downs. Florida averaged third down and 10.1 yards to gain on first down. You're not going to win many like that. You're not going to win many battles. So on that, basically averaging 3rd and 10, Florida ran 6 of those, mostly in the second half. Play calling was runs. Only gained a first down on 2 of those. And now look, some of it was trying to set up 4th down and shorter. But too many times those runs didn't really go anywhere. And that was kind of my worry of this game. If you weren't going to be able to run the ball, what would that mean for Florida's offense? And it played out to mean 3rd and long. And then Florida ran on 3rd and long. And I do think Napier was trying to set up 4th and short, but it also lets me know, at the same time that this game in particular now, only this game, I don't think Napier fully trusted Anthony Richardson in this game versus this defense. I'm not trying to make it any more than that. Was trying to set up 4th down with mostly runs, trying to set up some 4th and shorts, but it kind of kept you in 4th and long. And because we've seen the aggressiveness before, we've seen the trust before, maybe even to a fault. Go back to the Kentucky game. But then that same trust, that same aggressiveness kept Florida in the Tennessee game. But I think versus this defense, and all the pressure that was coming from Georgia on the quarterback, I think Napier got conservative. Right or wrong call, not sure how much you're doing against Georgia's defense anyway. But I get the angle of, look, personally, I'll agree with you a lot of you. I wouldn't have ran that much on 3rd and long. I wouldn't have. I got it. Probably not trusting your quarterback and trying to set up shorter 4th down conversion plays, but it was not there. And kind of to extend that, talking about trust and all that, at the same time, Richardson did throw 37 times. And I think if he has to throw that much, then, of course, the completion percentage better be higher than 49%. Kept saying all week I thought the shootout was the best chance to win this game besides turnovers. And Florida had the chance for both scenarios in some ways. But the quarterback has to hit his throws if you're going to win in a shootout. And it wasn't there. 49%. Richardson was 11 of 15 on throws less than 5 yards. 1 of 7 on throws 5 to 14 yards. Right there, 5 to 14 yards, a little intermediate range, 1 of 7. You've got to hit your throws. He was 6 of 16 on throws 15-plus yards. So in this game, I don't think Napier trusted his quarterback against that defense that can turn around a game in no time. I don't think he trusted the players and team around Anthony Richardson to protect him and help him on 3rd down. I think that played a part into it too. I don't think it was just Richardson. He was under pressure all day, more so than any other game this season. I think all that combined was a pretty conservative approach by Billy Napier. I get it. But I think once it was kind of set that Georgia was pretty much stuffing a lot of those 3rd downs. They're pretty much stuffing the run. Did Florida have some success in the 3rd quarter? Sure. Overall, no. Once it was established, especially in the first half, that Georgia was not going to let Florida run on them, the approach may have to change a little bit. Florida never really got into those 4th and shorts. And many of it set up by way too many 3rd and long runs. Other side of it, Georgia came in averaging 41.7 points a game and 526 yards of offense. As I mentioned, going back to earlier, Georgia 42 points, so they got their average in points. And then the 555 yards of offense was 30 more than their total in the season. And it was the most ever against a Florida team in a series that dates back to 1904. 555 yards. As I mentioned, this defense did some good things, forced some turnovers, forced some punts, did get off the field more so than they have in the past. But stats show historically bad day still. And we knew the tight ends were going to be an issue, of course. And also Georgia in the red zone. They went 4 for 4 in the red zone, as I mentioned earlier. Coming into the game, Georgia ranked second nationally. That's why I brought that stat up, of course, in the preview. They were second nationally in red zone. Georgia's now 46 of 47 in the red zone, 33 touchdowns, 13 field goals. So they were able to continue that versus this Gator defense. And look, we heard first month of the season, first month and a half of the season, oh, bend don't break defense. No, it's not. It's a bad defense. And there was no bending here. It was bending and breaking. Georgia got to the red zone. Georgia scored touchdowns in the red zone. Third down for Georgia. 50%, as I said, 6 of 12. Georgia averaged 3rd and 5. They were 1 of 3 on 3rd and long. Some improvement? I don't know. I'm reaching here. We've seen 3rd and long against Missouri. We've seen 3rd and long versus LSU the last 2 games. Georgia didn't have as much success there on that. Had success everywhere else. 1 of 3 on 3rd and long for Georgia's offense. That's 9+ yards. 5 of 7 on 3rd and short. And we've talked about up front, Florida's issues up front, ad nauseum. And it showed up a lot there in Georgia's run game and these 3rd and shorts. 5 of 7, 3rd and short. That's 1 to 4 yards. Helping Georgia was averaging 7 yards on first down. 7 yards. Help set up a lot of those 3rd and shorts where they go 5 of 7. But when you average 7 yards on first down, it's going to make your day a whole lot easier. So averaging 4.8 yards a rush, gaining 156 yards through the air on first down was Georgia. 4.8 yards a rush, 156 yards passing on first down. Florida had half those passing yards on first down. There's your difference. Georgia able to take advantage of a Gator defense on first down. Looking at some of the defensive notes for Florida, just kind of going to try and point out some highlights here. Florida had 0 turnovers, so that's an improvement. 3 takeaways for the Gator defense. 2 interceptions for the 3rd time in 8 games this season. USF, Missouri were the other 2. 3 takeaways versus Georgia. Gators now have 14 takeaways on the season, including at least 1 in each game. Last season, Florida had just 9 takeaways through the first 8 games. Two pass breakups versus Georgia. Trey Dean has broken up 19 passes, 6 away from tying Janoris Jenkins for his career. Dean also tackled for loss, 1 quarterback hurry, made some plays. More so than we have seen so far this season. One of his best games of the season. Now, yes, I pointed it out on Twitter, and as soon as I did, of course, there's a play that goes right over his head. He doesn't turn around, but you can still acknowledge that. I had too many people, it doesn't erase what he did in this game, that game, his whole career. No, it doesn't. It doesn't. You're right. It doesn't. But that's not what I was talking about. Against Georgia, Trading had a good game. Jadarius Perkins, shout out for him, man. Great effort on that interception. But Amari Burney, all over the field, all over the stat sheet. 1 interception, 1 tackle for loss, 1 pass breakup, 2 quarterback hurries, 1 forced fumble that Trey Dean picks up. Of course, that 3rd quarter interception by him, he was in. So even the Bowers touchdown, he's in position. He's in position here to make the interception. Good day by Amari Burney as well. I know, career-wise, all that, I get it. Don't get me wrong. I'll speak about what happened versus Georgia, and that's what happened. Chris McClellan, as I mentioned, I want to shout out him too. That big play behind the line of scrimmage there. So, all right, there we go. It's kind of the look back at a Georgia 42-20 victory over the Gators. And kind of to wrap this one all up, next 4 games will tell us much more about Napier than yesterday's Georgia game. I'm not breaking any news there, of course. I think a lot of us know that. But it was going to tell us a lot more than yesterday did when you're at such a talent disadvantage versus Georgia. We all saw the graphic out there about recruiting rankings during the game. The recruiting rankings between the two teams. Of course, we all know it. It's nothing new for this conversation. Next 4 games are winnable. And all the improvement we want to see as the season progresses, you need to see it in the next 4 games. For all the comments out there of, getting better through the season, progressing through the season, that really comes up the next 4 games. Against Georgia, no. I can't get too upset at the game result when it's exactly what I expected. A less talented, inconsistent team going up against one of the best teams in the country. At the same time, the next 4 opponents don't have those advantages Georgia has. Only one more has the talent, Texas A&M. So for Florida, all the inconsistency issues, they'll still be there. But we need to see less. There could have been progress this bye week and versus Georgia, but that's not the best opponent for it to show up. On film, on tape, to the eye test. It's just not. These next 4 are. And Florida must respond with teams that have had very similar seasons. 4 games left going into the last month of the season against 4 opponents you can win against. In some ways, most of them should win against. We'll see how it all plays out. All right. That will do it for this episode of Gators Breakdown. Georgia 42, Florida 20. And trying to figure out the schedule for the rest of the week. Monday night being Halloween. Of course, I'm going to enjoy that with my daughter. I know many of you will be out there enjoying Halloween as well with your family or friends. Will Miles, my co-host, will as well. So we're trying to figure out probably no episode Monday night. But we're trying to figure out maybe Monday during the day, maybe Tuesday. Still trying to figure all that out. So just be able to look out on Twitter. I'll try to make an announcement on YouTube as well with a post. But stay tuned for that. We'll see where we go with that. Of course, Texas A&M preview will be up later on in the week as well. So, all right, that'll do it for this episode of Gators Breakdown. I'm your host, David Waters. You can find me on Twitter at GatorDave_SEC. Guys and girls out there, thank you for listening to this episode of Gators Breakdown.